What if I told you that the story of the exile and return wasn't just about ancient Israel, but has tremendous life application for us today? These books of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther are a powerful story of rebuilding what was once lost, fighting for what truly matters, and seeing God even when it seems like it's silent. So stick with me here. We're going to see how all these books mold together into a story of God's faithfulness. And as we begin here, I want to pay attention to some people that we're going to come across and explain just a little bit about who they are. So first off, we have Ezra. He's a priest. He's a scribe. He's very passionate about God's law. And he led this second group of exiles back to Jerusalem and taught the people to return to the ways of the Lord, calling for national repentance. And then there's Zerubbabel. He's a governor in the royal line of David who led this first return from exile and helped rebuild the temple despite very intense opposition to it. Then we come across Jeshua or Joshua. He's a high priest. He worked alongside Zerubbabel, and he played this very key role in restoring worship and temple practices when the people returned from exile. Then we come to the book of Nehemiah, and Nehemiah, he's a cupbearer to the king. He became governor of Judah, and get this, he rebuilt Jerusalem's broken walls with those among him in just 52 days while battling fierce opposition to it. Speaking of opposition, Sanballat, he's a major enemy here of Nehemiah, and he opposed the rebuilding of Jerusalem. He mocked the Jews, and he repeatedly tried to stop the work through fear and sabotage. Then we get into the book of Esther, and Esther, she becomes the queen of Persia. She has tremendous courage to save her people when there's a plan out to destroy them, even at the risk of her own life. Then we see Mordecai, family member of Esther, a guardian towards her. He's faithful, he's bold, he's a leader that helped expose this plot against the king of Persia and encouraged Esther to act for her people. Then there's the villain, Haman. He's the villain in Esther's story here. He's filled with so much pride and hatred. He plotted genocide against the Jews, but his plan very much unraveled and led to his own downfall and death. Next, real quick, let's take a look at things like the title, the authors, and dates of these writings here. So the books of Ezra and Nehemiah were originally just one scroll. They're likely written by Ezra himself, probably around 430 to maybe 440 BC in that time frame. Now, Esther was written a little bit before that, around 470 BC, possibly by Mordecai. And together, these books, they span nearly a century of history in Israel after the exile here to the time that they're coming back. Now let's take a moment and see how these books intertwine, because they very much do. They might seem separate at first glance, but they're very deeply connected. So Ezra and Nehemiah, they chronicle this return to Jerusalem and the rebuilding of the temple, the rebuilding of the walls, while Esther, we can say, zooms out, shows us how God is working in Persia behind the scenes, preserving his people from destruction. And when we read these together, so to speak, we see this full picture emerge. God is restoring, God is defending, and he is remaining faithful to his promises through his covenant. There's a bit of a layered storytelling that gives us both a ground level and a heavenly level perspective. Ezra and Nehemiah, they reveal the visible work of rebuilding a nation, while Esther reveals God's hidden hand that preserves his people. And together, these books, they form a holistic picture of how God moves, sometimes visibly through leaders and construction, and sometimes invisibly through providence and protection. Now, as we read, we're going to come across a major theme. We can call it God's covenant faithfulness. There's a powerful thread throughout Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther, and it's God's covenant faithfulness. God had made promises to people like Abraham, Moses, and David, promises of land, promises of presence, and a future hope. And even after exile, God was very much working to fulfill these promises, and he stirred these hearts to return. He empowered leaders to rebuild, and he preserved these Jewish people to continue in the line that would bring forth the Messiah. And this theme, it can remind us that God does not forget his promises, even in seasons of silence or hardship. His plan for you is moving forward. And so as we read, let's trace his faithfulness, his faithful hand, so to speak, from generation to generation and see how it points forward to Jesus Christ. And as we close here, I want to encourage you in something. Whether you're rebuilding something in your life, whether you're standing up for what's right or waiting for God to show up in the silence, these three books, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther, they have something to say to you. So make sure to watch also this week's video that's coming out, the Bible in the Year video that covers the readings that we're going to get into in these three books. And I look forward to the powerful encounters and hearing from you as we read along the Bible in a year.